Thursday's did not practice list: Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, Javon Kinlaw, okay, Emmanuel Mosley, Jimmy Ward, Trent Williams. None of that is breaking news to anybody, but of those guys, the Javon Kinlaw injury is the least surprising. When you go back to the draft, and we've talked about his knee before, look at this I found this old article, John. While no team failed Kinlaw's physical at the combine, NFL media's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero reported that multiple teams flagged his knees, plural, as at risk of arthritis. Okay. Now, I don't, this is not a bust or not a bust conversation. Javon Kinlaw is going to try to continue his career, and who knows what comes next. But I think it's pretty clear at this point, the Niners, this has failed. The 14th overall pick on Javon Kinlaw. Now, he's coming into the year in which you're going to have to pick up a fifth-year option this offseason. But between Thomas, McGlinchey, Kinlaw, 3 out of 4, they hit Bosa. They have not drafted linemen well. Now, you could argue on McGlinchey, we could debate, right? He's been their starter at right tackle for 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 5-year start at right tackle.
Well, blew out his quad and missed some time.
That's true. No, that's true. But my point is, like, he hasn't at minimum, he's been a starter. Like Solomon Thomas was not even that.
Yeah. When he's healthy, he starts.
The problem with that one, though, is that the next pick was Colton Miller, who has been a much better tackle.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have not. Now they got Bosa, but they have not drafted this position well, and a big part of that was this Kinlaw pick. It's not that he was a hurt guy now who no one thought could be hurt. What some people worried about coming into the draft is what has turned out to be the problem with him, and they made a mistake.
Well, I'd have to ask one of my trainer buddies in the league, like, if this means the same thing. What I was told is teams had red flagged him for a degenerate knee, and I would guess either they're the same thing or they parallel each other. Degenerate knee turns into arthritis, pain, non-functional, right? And think about last year. People, he had a knee problem. Well, what happened? He got it fixed. Dr. Elatrash got microfracture, ACL, the whole thing. Well, the problem clearly is not fixed. And someone, I sarcastically tweeted out, I quoted like Mayoko's practice report, like, is his career over? Kind of sarcastically, but kind of like, is this it? Like, is he just an unable body? Like, if your wall is rotting because of water damage or whatever, and you know what, it's like the color changes. Well, if I just take paint and I paint over it, it might look okay, but actually the water damage isn't gone. Like, you can open this surgery and do it, but if he has a degenerate knee, there is no fixing it. So it's a fucking disaster. Like, you can't tell me. Sometimes guys get surgery. It happens in baseball, basketball, and football, right? And they come back, and then it's like, well, they came back a little too early. It's not quite fully healed. It swells up a little bit. Like, we just got to pull back. I would say that's not that crazy. That has happened in the history of our lives, back in the 90s when clearly surgeries weren't as good, to now when they have all this information. And then there's this, like, this doesn't just feel like, well, it's a little sore. No, this feels like this thing is never going to work. Like, you have a tire that you keep patching and it keeps blowing out and it's never going to work. The problem is, in this case, like, you can't just get a new tire and replace it. Like, the tire, like, his knee's his knee. Like, what are you going to do? Get a knee replacement? Like, I'm viewing him as in no fault of his own. Like, to me, there's a bust level. Like, Solomon Thomas on the field, he's not good enough. This guy on the field, I'm not saying he was ever going to be Vita Vea or Buckner or that level of player. You got to play to prove that. But he was clearly a legitimate starter. Like, you could start him, right? His body type, his explosion. He can't get on the field because of this knee is that fucked up. And they're clearly being pretty mum about it. But, like, look at all the other players, right, that are clearly, he's got plantar fasciitis. You notice it was foot and ankle. Like, he's got some shit going on with this Armstead.
Yeah.
Bosa has an issue right now. We know exactly what it is. You just hope, like, it goes away. Mosley, torn ACL. Trent Williams, ankle sprain. Like, everything's concrete. And then there's
broken hand.
Then there's Javon Kinlaw. It's like, because you know what and I understand it. They don't want to go, we didn't fail them like some other teams did. Obviously, they know that, right? They're not dumb. They have friends on other teams. We took a chance and it didn't work out. We've taken a chance on Reuben Foster. He let us down immediately. Maturity. We took a chance on Kinlaw from a medical standpoint. And I wouldn't go quite as far as disaster, but it's been a negative. You could go borderline disaster when you factor in how high you took him.
I think you could. And when you factor in, and again, I think it's
the red flag was known.
The red flag was known. He wasn't here to replace Buckner. No one was going to replace Buckner, but he was part of that solution. The reason, if you were going to counter argument disaster, is just, well, they missed at the position where they can most afford to miss because their defensive line coach creates defensive linemen like Frankensteins, left, right, and center.
I am taking out the other variables and just putting him in a vacuum.
When you draft a guy 14th, it's one thing if at the end of George Kittle's career, he's not a Hall of Fame player because he missed too many games. You're like, well, shit. No, it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But Kinlaw came in with that red flag, right? You wouldn't look back on Kittle's career and go, yeah, you guys drafted a hurt player and he got hurt a lot. Well, he plays a style that gets him hurt, but he himself did not come into the league with a red flag injury like Javon Kinlaw did. And they, with a very important pick, took that risk. And, you can say we'd take that risk again. I don't know, but this one has not worked out. He's played 102 snaps this year. 102 snaps this year. He is going to be fifth-year option eligible. Think about that. Let's just judge these first-round picks on fifth-year options. McGlinchey, yeah, but
more backed into a corner, didn't have a choice.
Solomon Thomas?
No.
And now Kinlaw. What are you going to do? Ayuk, you'll do Ayuk. Ayuk, same year. Ayuk. Now, here's the thing with Kinlaw.
Bosa? I guess his already got picked up.
The thing with Kinlaw is he's not going to be that expensive of a fifth-year option relative to what it can be because he's not going to be a Pro Bowler. He's not going to play the minimum number of snaps probably this year. So it's going to be the cheapest. I saw somebody suggest, I think it was 49erscap.com suggested it'll be like $8 or $9 million. But that's a lot. That's $8 or $9 million, a lot of money, right? It's just the cheapest of the fifth-year options.
Well, as of October 13th today, it's a hard no, right?
Yeah, you can't. If I think you do the same thing, is it? They picked up Armstead's option when they came in, right?
Yeah,
they picked up Armstead's option. To me, it's like the Daniel Jones. Like, hey man, we will try to keep you healthy year 4. We'd love for you to play year 4. If you're great, then great. We'll keep you around. But how can you commit yourself to potentially 2 more years of this?
Well, think about this. As of they wouldn't hesitate if they could right now pick up Ayuk's. Kyle would send it in the league right now, right? Just like a lot of players in his draft. Ayuk's Wirfs. You could go to the group of guys. There's a ton in that first. Justin Jefferson, they would have picked it up like his 3rd game of his career. The Kinlaw thing is just an easy no, just based on under no circumstances can I pay someone $8 million and get 0 games potential. And that's what the potential is here. And I think about it all the time. Like, this is why I defended Mike McDaniel. Like, ultimately, the doctors in this sport more than any of them, because it's such a violent sport and because, like, there's a wear and tear. I guess it happens in baseball, too. Remember one of the dudes, it was Leiter and Rocker. Yeah, and the dude the Mets drafted, they claimed like degenerate elbow. We're not signing him, and they refused to sign him. It happens in football too. It's before the draft. Like in baseball, sometimes they're like, you don't get the medicals till after, and then it's like, wait, you want me to give you $12 million? I got your MRI right here. I say no. In football, you get it immediately because they all have to go to the combine. But not every doctor has the same view. So if you and me if you're the coach and I'm the GM, and we're sitting there going over it. I vividly remember Howie and Andy, both years I worked in the office, like a couple weeks before the draft, they would meet with Jeffrey Lurie and the doctors would come and Rick Burkholder, who's still his trainer, they'd meet and they would just go over the combine results of like, we're going to recommend no on this, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. What are you supposed to say? Right now, I think sometimes like when they tell you this degenerate knee, and you say, well, we love the guy, and they just give you the recommendation. No, clearly sometimes they get overruled. I'm
Not only
talking
we
like
love the guy, John, it does feel like they were really drafting for specific position. And just looking at that draft, there's not another defensive tackle that gets drafted till 40, right? They took him at 14.
who was at 40?
Hank Blacklock. Oh, no, Ross Blacklock.
Never heard of
Texans
him.
took him.
Yeah, I don't watch much Texas football. So to me, when you
Career
take
25 tackles. So.
when you take character guys, and the Niners had an experience of this year one, the fucking guy got into an altercation at the combine with a nurse, and he was already a walking, talking red flag coming out of Alabama, right? That was pretty insane looking back. The Raiders gave us multiple examples. Lynn Bowden was a huge red flag, and he didn't last till the end of training camp. Damon Arnett was a massive red flag coming out of Ohio State. All of them blew up. And I think most teams would tell you, fuck, we wouldn't have touched this guy. And sometimes it's not, when I say the team, I'm talking like the scout or a college director. The only guy making the decision is really the owner, the GM, and the coach. A lot of times the assistant coach, like, I don't want to mess with this guy. But character stuff, we've seen enough like bad character guys turn their life around, and sometimes bad character guys stay shitheads. So you're dealing with humans. You hope you can influence them. You never know. And some characters are a lot worse than others. To me, the medical stuff is just, it's tough, because I think if you don't take them, let's just say, okay, our doctors, we'll pass them, but we're a little leery, and you're like, fuck it. We're not going to take the risk. And then he goes a couple picks later and he becomes a Pro Bowl and you're kicking yourself.
Yeah.
I guess that could happen with character guys too. I mean, it does all the time, right? A character guy. I mean, Tyreek Hill's a good example. No one would touch him. Do you think if you do that over again, his career, he lasts till the 5th round?
No chance.
Well, does he go in the top 20?
Yeah. Does he go in the top 10? I mean,
yeah. I mean, he hit his girlfriend and got kicked out of college.
On video, right? There was a video.
Well, Joe Mixon's probably a better example.
Maybe the Mixon is the one, the video I'm thinking of.
Mixon's a better example because the video, and he was at ultimately Tyreek was, I think, transferred to Alabama State, Oklahoma State kicked him out of school. Like the Mixon, if you could redo the Mixon thing and how it's played out, and he's been clearly a pretty good guy, does he get drafted 50 spots? I think he went end of 2nd round. Does he end up going pick 23?
Yeah.
Or whatever? He's clearly a
round.
really, really good player. Yeah. And the problem though is, there is no reduce, Of course, a year in, it's Danny Watkins is playing air guitar before the game and he doesn't even know the plays. This is a fucking disaster. But you didn't know that at the time when you're just
you did know he was 28 and a firefighter. Well, firefighter.
But you just watch you just turn on the Baylor tape and he's making plays.
Yeah. And also, who's the guy that the Broncos drafted? He was older. From Utah, Garrett Bowles. He was an older player. And
he was not that good early on. He became a really good player.
Yeah.
Did he tear his ACL or something the other night?
Good question. I'd be lying if I could answer that question, but I did feel like something happened to him.
It's just what makes the draft. I have a red flag. You deserve criticism. AJ Jenkins is a good example. He was widely viewed as a 3rd or 4th round pick. And then the draft process happened and he runs fast and he gets inflated. Those picks, I'm cool with. You deserve the heat. The injury stuff and the character stuff, I just think so often they go one of two ways, and a lot of times they go good, and a lot of times they go shitty. You just never know. You're just kind of playing. You're just flipping the coin, and it looks like the Niners flipped the coin on this one when a lot of people would have just handed the coin to someone else. But over the history of the sport, people have flipped the coin, and it's worked out for them. Because if Javon Kinlaw was just playing 15, 16 games a year, they would 100% be fine with it, right? It would be going well. Clearly, yeah. I mean, all their D linemen are good. They made Arden Key into a player. It's this guy makes guys into players, and he's too talented.
Well, that's why they took him, right? Same with Ruben. They didn't take these chances on mediocre talents. They took them on potential superstar talents. Although the irony with Ruben is he also had a problem staying healthy. He was a double whammy, right? Ruben Foster was a problem off the field. But
he had questionable shoulders.
He had bad shoulders. So it was kind of the same deal. But look, the famous Ron Wolf quote, you're gonna hit on 1 out of 3. That's pretty good in the draft. What is not debatable is they have hit on 1 out of 4 top 15 linemen in 4 straight drafts. And the Ruben Foster one, you go, okay, part of that, this was they were new first year. The Javon Kinlaw draft was a different type of red flag, but just don't. There's no other way around it. I mean, this pick was
Well, the way they've stayed good,
has
let's
failed.
face it, they have hit so many after first round picks and late first round picks. If you and I were ownership, we would say, well, they waste a lot of money for us up top in the first round, but goddamn, they save us a lot of money in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth rounds.
You would say that.
Because if Hufanga's a really good player for the next couple of years, he's one of the best values in the league, right? He's a $12 million player that we're paying $900,000.
Yeah, you just as you try to keep your window open and win championships, you need superstars, and those guys, by and large,
are high picks.
Yeah, doesn't mean George Kittle's not a great pick. Of course he is. I mean, he's a fantastic pick. But you don't. There's no rule that says you have to miss on a first rounder if you hit on a fifth rounder.
Yeah, you can do both.
Like the universe just insists on keeping itself in balance. Like you're not allowed to do all of those things.
But that's part of the stats, right? If you're going to hit on 50, if you're going to have a great draft and hit on 60, 4 of those, if you have 10 picks, 4 of them are going to be just ugly.
Yeah.
And even 2 of your 6 hits are actually going to be like, oh, he's just a good special teamer and he's a good guard. I
think to me, the real question is, why have you missed on 3 out of 4 top 15 D linemen? Is there a problem in scouting those players? Now, they would say, well, hold on. Kinlaw was not a talent miss. Kinlaw was a knee issue. The offensive lineman, McGlinchey over Colton Miller, maybe Kyle just preferred him. Maybe it was like, we know that Miller's going to take a year to develop. Because remember, year 1, it didn't look like Colton Miller was going to be better than McGlinchey.
I think
and we don't want to
remember he hurt his ankle. That was the knock. It was like, well, he's injured.
Who was Colton?
Colton hurt his ankle early, and that's
and maybe it was like, hey, if he had not gone to Tom Cable, maybe he wouldn't have developed into this guy. Who knows? But and then the Solomon Thomas one was.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Of the 3 guys, you can put them into 2 different categories. McGlinchey and Solomon Thomas are safe, and as GM Haberman always says, there is no such thing as safe, and it's true. Like there is no such thing as a high floor guy. Because if it was a high floor guy, no one would ever miss on draft picks, right?
You just always take the high floor guys, and you just have a really, really good team.
You just have like the 2014 Patriots. Every guy would just be fucking Logan Mankins on your squad. That's not how it works. And the high ceiling guys miss all the time too. So like the likelihood that a guy might be some Pro Bowler or just as high floor, be like a 7-year starter, both those guys could miss, and you're just whiffing, right? And that's. If you had to rank them, you would go McGlinchey, Kinlaw. I'd put Solomon last, even though he did play. It's just like he's just not very good.
Rank him how?
Well, just like of the picks.
Oh, how? Yeah, I mean, look, McGlinchey's kind of, to me, if it wasn't for Colton Miller getting drafted the spot after him with the tails or the heads or whichever it was on the coin,
I was there.
A little different. You were there.
Gruden stormed off. Remember?
Not want to be there. Was Rod Woodson the guy that like did the flip or something like that?
Rod flipped it, and then John Lynch high-fived him.
Yeah, I mean McGlinchey has been a starter on 2 NFC Championship teams, right? Or did he play in the? Well,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah, he was. Where'd you say PFF had him? No, he did. He did not play at the end of that. He was out.
PFF this year has McGlinchey ranked 44th among tackles who have played at least 50% of their team snaps. And they have Colton Miller 11th.
Yeah.
As that's actually pass block grades. If you want overall grades,
I think he's
Miller
a
is
decent run
22nd and McGlinchey is 23rd. Oh, yeah. So overall, there you go. So the run block, again, that's where I agree. Some people in the comments have said it's not fair to put McGlinchey in the Kinlaw Solomon Thomas category. I think that's true. He is a different, like if you told me he's just back at right tackle next year for the 49ers, I'd say, okay. And that might actually be fine, depending on what the rest of their offensive line looks like. Right.
And it might be when you factor in all the, the variables, like where do you find one? Right.
So if he ends up starting at right tackle for them for like 9 years, you'd go, well, can you really complain about that pick? That would be a fair point. You can only draft the players available. And if one of them plays 9 years, that would be fine.
So he'd be the right tackle version of Derek. Like, wait, Derek just started for 17 years for the Raiders. And they made the playoffs 2 times. How's this possible?
The difference is at tackle, there's 4 other guys on that line, plus a tight end, plus a running back that can help. A quarterback, there's just you.
I was going to say you get paid to pass block in the NFL, which you do. It's why Trent Williams is so valuable. Kyle would be like, well, we kind of pay for half.
Yeah, you're there to just help Debo up.